Welcome into another edition of Locked On Seminoles. We are going to talk about Amaree Williams, the soon-to-be class of 24 player that is visiting Florida State this weekend.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into another episode of Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Today's show is going to be fun because it's a new trend that we're seeing. And if you take nothing else away from this, understand that you're going to be seeing more of this. Amaree is a class of 25 player that is changing his class to 24. Meaning he's going from a junior to a senior. He is from the Benjamin School down in Palm Beach County. He's an edge rusher / tight end that can do a little bit of everything. Very athletic young man. And quite frankly, he's one of the top performers in the class of 25 that is now going to have a chance to sign this coming Wednesday. And it's pretty unique because until just recently, it's something that was kind of rare. We're seeing more of it. Armando Blunt, etc., have been doing it. So without further ado, I'm going to break into why he's important and what's going on with him in regards to Florida State. First off, again, Benjamin School, 6'4", 215, 220, somewhere in that range. He is a track athlete. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Hold on to that thought. But he plays D-end and tight end. Not normal for a kid to be as athletic as he is and just kind of pick whatever he wants. But at practice when I was there, he literally got to participate on either side when I was there earlier this year. So puts it in perspective. Auburn, Georgia, Bama, Miami, Florida State, Michigan, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas, Southern Cal. These are some of the schools that have already offered this young man a scholarship. If I remember correctly, 247 had him as their number one athlete in 25. And again, he is moving to the class of 24. Here's why is it so pertinent to the Noles. He is visiting Florida State this weekend because he's reclassifying. He can take in a visit and official. I assume that it's official. I don't know why else he wouldn't. And quite honestly, this is a fun thing to talk about because I had no idea. I live in Florida. I'm pretty well connected around, but I didn't know anything about this one. And I've met the kid, great kid, by the way. And it's just hilarious to me that it keeps happening, but that's on me. It should be a situation that we all kind of expect this now. He's at an elite academic institution in the Benjamin School. So he's going to be prepared for college. I don't know how they do all the credit stuff, and I'm sure he's going to enroll next summer and all that. But again, very phenomenal talent. So without further ado, I want to go into some of his stats. We're going to talk a little bit about all the things that go into it. I'll pull up comments here in just a second after I read off some of this stuff. I'm going to pull up comments on my own too with regard to what all I got. I got a bunch of stuff here. He had, in 2023, he played 10 games, 16 catches, 424 yards. 26.5 yards per catch, 7 touchdowns. So out of 16 catches, 7 of them went for touchdowns. And he's playing in Florida. 26.5 per catch and a long of 67 yards. Now, when I saw him, when I went out there for practice one day, they had track practice first. And I figured he's discus, shot, something like that. No, he's part of the 100-meter team. What's that? Because he's 215 and he's standing there and I'm like, holy cow, that's impressive. So I watch him run. He's a natural athlete, man. He can get after it in the open space and make plays. I don't care what school it is he goes to, they're going to find a spot for him. Here's the interesting part. Again, he plays both sides. In 22, he only had 7 catches. This year, it went up to 16. But last year, he had 15 sacks. This year, he had 4. So he's moved more towards offense, and I assume that's what he's going to play for the Noles. I don't know, but he could play either. Athletically, you cannot teach what he does. And I've seen him go through D-end drills. The day I was there, he played defense. He can bend with the best of them and get his shoulder pads underneath an offensive tackle and get around and bend the corner and just be a speed rusher. All of that, and he runs around 11 in the 100 meters, somewhere around there. I don't think there's going to be any question that Florida State would be lucky to add him to this class. Although I do think that it would still be in his best interest because he's moving up one grade. Go ahead and redshirt. Get into college, redshirt, do whatever. Now, you can still play per the rules that there are in college football now up to 4 games. The caveat to that is you can play 4 and then you can play in the bowl game. I didn't even realize that. Somebody said that on a podcast today. And I'm like, oh, well, that's an interesting stat. So any of the kids that have played 4 years this year for Florida State, if they play against Georgia and they've already played their 4 games, they can still redshirt, just so you know. What would I do with Amaree? Well, number one, I would allow him to kind of pick his position early on. And I assume they've talked about it and figured that out already. But again, this has been thrust upon me, and I don't know what's going on long term. Maybe they're going to figure it out after he gets to campus. Maybe they're going to figure it out in terms of if you come in and you like one spot better than what we like you at, you have to prove it. I have no idea. But I would let him try either and just kind of go about it, because you're losing multiple tight ends. You're going to lose defensive ends. They need help on both spots. Norvell and his staff shouldn't really be concerned about it because these things tend to take care of themselves. Defensive ends are always more coveted as a general rule, but from seeing what little I saw of him in practice, he did some one-on-ones the day I was there too, and he moved over to flex tight end. He caught a back shoulder that was really impressive. So Amaree, I think upside-wise and just the way he carries himself with that speed, how the game is played today with Norvell's scheme. It was a different coach. I wouldn't necessarily say this, but I like Norvell's play calling. His scheme is just tremendous. I'd play him at tight end if push came to shove. And I know that pass rushers are hard to find. Historically, though, Florida State does not struggle to get DNs. Finding a pass catcher that is like this, and maybe I'm jaded based on Brock Bowers and some of these other guys that have come through college football. There's nobody going to cover him in the slot. Like, you put Amaree in the slot, he's going to be 6'4", 230-ish. Who's going to guard him? Who guarded Jaheim Bell? Same kind of deal. Maybe slightly taller, but the same kind of deal. There aren't going to be many. And if he ends up playing defensive end again, that's cool. That's what I would do with him. So with that being stated, note that this is not a normal football player. This is a big-time guy, and he can make a lot of things happen. I don't think Florida State would have to wait more than the one. I would redshirt him. But in year 2, I think he would play a lot. So here in just a moment, I want your questions on this. I want to hear your thoughts on if you have questions regarding how does a kid move up. I have a little bit of information, not as much as I'd like. I can talk about that. What his recruitment's like, what kind of person he is, etc. I've met him, good kid. I can go into that. Any questions you have about him. And then here, after I get done with Amaree, I am also going to learn more than I thought I was going to today. Florida State's linebacker situation. We'll get to that towards the end, and we will also talk about some of the other stuff going on with Armando Blunt, KJ Bolden, etc. We have a lot to get to in this live show. With that being said, there's also a lot that I need to get to on some other stuff as well. We're talking about a lot of different things going on with Florida State, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to see something go on with Florida State getting some commitments here real soon. Speaking of commitment, you should commit to getting the Game Time app. If you want to buy your father some tickets, if you want to get tickets for yourself, perhaps take your wife to a game that she's never been to and a great experience, last minute ticket deals at Game Time. Flash deals, tickets on the last day. You can see your seats once you click on them on the app. It is a very easy app to use. I've used it myself, and it's something that I can check on basketball tickets, concerts, anything that you can think of that there's an arena. If it's here in the United States, you're talking about Game Time. So with that being said, go ahead and take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account and Locked On College, and get $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right. Now let's talk about who is this kid? Well-spoken, very intelligent, has the ability to look at things from a broad perspective. He wasn't a normal kid that I met. I was really impressed. Quite frankly, there aren't enough kids like him. If you find somebody like Amaree Williams that's more mature and has that kind of athletic ability, of course you're going to go after him. Again, the offer list is ridiculous. Florida State, Miami, Georgia, Auburn, Southern Cal, Texas, Michigan, Penn State. There's a reason they all offered. So my question, and I'm about to pull up all these in the chat. I see everybody over there. What is it that you think Florida State should do when kids want to reclassify? I just kind of want to throw that out. At any point you want to ask a question about that, you can do that too. So, all right. What do we got here? What's up, Brian? Go Noles. Mike, go nuts. Hey, Mike, how you doing, sir? Definitely need defensive ends. That is your daddy, Noel, 100%. Look, every class, there's no exception. There's no exception. You need defensive ends, period. Florida State, any school you can imagine, got to have them, man. Teams that don't have pass rushers are teams that don't win major bowl games. Teams that don't have pass rushers don't beat their rival. Teams that don't have pass rushers don't have a chance to get to the playoffs. All these things go together, 100%. All right. Do you think Amaee has more upside than Landon? Ooh, that is a great question. Landon's a little different. I've seen them both up close, know them both great guys. I think they're the number one kid in 24 and 25 at tight end. Flex, like that just random athlete guy. There's one other kid in Georgia you might put in there. Ooh, I don't know which one's better. It depends on which one wants to block more. That would be my answer. Catching the ball, making people miss, being dynamic, both of them I think will be fine. This is more about their effort after they get on campus. I don't think you can put a lot of stock in that right now because they're beating up on high school kids. Going out to FSU practice and see, oh, that's Patrick Payton. Oh, that's Blake Nicholson. Oh, that's a safety that's been at Florida State for 2 or 3 years. I gotta find a way to get my hands on him so he doesn't run around me and kill somebody in the backfield. These are hard things to do. So which one has more upside is really up to them. Talent-wise, it's pretty much the same deal. I would say Amaee is faster in a straight line because he's a track kid, but at the same time, Landon is a beast, and he's been a beast since he's like 14 years old when I first met him, probably before that. I'm guessing he's a little stronger. He was a little bigger earlier, but I doubt that's going to matter much because once you get in the weight room at the collegiate level, it generally kind of takes care of itself. All right. Savage Biscuit 38. That is a great name, by the way. Someone asked me yesterday, do I listen to No Fries, No Slaw? I said, yep, and I listen to Locked On Seminoles. Keep it up, Brian. Always a great job. Thank you, man. There are some really cool Florida State shows out there, and I'm not afraid to say it. I've listened to that show. Bud Elliott's a friend of mine. He's got a show. The Nolecast, they do a great job. There's a whole bunch of different shows. By all means, you should check them out. It's a good time. All right. The Joker Dad. Amaee will be more of a D end. He could be. The only thing when you go to practice, I should have mentioned this earlier in evaluating him, there's no way to know how much in a high school practice you're going to get out of this. How much does he take the banging? Because you're not going to beat up on your own team. They don't tackle to the ground that much in high school practices or any level, really. In the season in the NFL, I don't even think they're allowed to per contract. But can he take on the run? I don't know. And that also kind of goes in with the tight end part with the blocking. I can only guess so much. Athletically, though, it doesn't matter. He's a freakazoid. He'll figure it out. All right. Do you have any concerns about Florida State finding starting caliber players in the portal at our current positions of need? I have a huge concern. Two of the concerns for every team would be tight end and D-line. Because even if you lose one guy, or not tight end, but offensive tackle, guard, center, and then D-line. If you lose even one guy like up front on the offensive line, it's just a chemistry thing. It's hard, so you need depth. Florida State's going to be short, and then they're not going to have as much chemistry because they're losing so many guys. Or at least I think. We'll see how many try to get a sixth year and all that. There's so much going on. D-line, you just need numbers in general, and you're going to lose Verse. You're not going to replace him. I said it on yesterday's live stream. You can go back and check it out. Florida State just like any other school, you're going to find that diamond in the rough like Jared. He's from the Dayton area. I mean, right down the road from Ohio State. He didn't get their offer. He didn't get anything. And he's right in the middle of an area that's heavily scouted. Ends up at Albany. Then he ends up all the way down south in Florida. Exception, not the rule. So with that being stated, what can you really expect long-term from that? You got to recruit more high school kids. And that's the same thing I said yesterday. Florida State's hit the home run in the portal, and they should by all means continue to take portal kids. But long-term, you want to slowly dwindle that number so you're developing your own guys. And it's a little easier to replace a kid instead of depending on somebody to come in January, go through spring ball, and then you thrust them into the lineup that fall. I think Florida State's still in a pretty good spot for the most part on defense, but linebacker is the other one. Like, I'm going to talk about it at length here in about 5-10 minutes. There's a long way to go at linebacker. There's a lot of moving parts. We'll get into that more in depth, but that's a concern. While I'm thinking of it, and before I forget, these are some of the notes. I've heard different things. I've heard KJ Bolden's going to go to Florida State. I was told today by somebody else he's definitely not going to go to Florida State. He'll go to Auburn or Georgia. And I also know that he's supposed to visit Florida State. I have no idea what that kid's going to do before anybody asks. KJ is one of the best players in the country, plays at Buford. I've heard too many different things. Whatever happens, happens. And the people I talked to are pretty well connected. So I have no idea. That's a question I'm sure is going to come up. I'll bring that back up if somebody has any questions. I'll be happy to address it. Armando Blunt, I will be shocked if he does not flip back from Florida State and go to Miami based on what I've been told. But again, I've been wrong before, and there's still several days till signing day, so that can change. Last piece on Florida State in this class, they're going to be, and I don't know who it is. This is just something I say to anybody. Anybody asks me something on Twitter, I talk to you on the phone, whatever. No matter who you are, you should expect at least one kid in every class in the last week to surprise you as a coaching staff. It happens all the time. Whatever kid it is. You know, what I mean by that is somebody that this kid's signing with us, we're good. Somebody's going to, in today's NIL era, you shouldn't be surprised. You have to be ready at any point in time to lose a player because it's a pretty good chance that's going to happen. All right. Georgia been losing a lot of them 5 stars in the portal. K-Jack, that is very true, but at the same time, it's Georgia. They got a little more depth than most. Well, Wayne, Jamari, and him just watching bowl practice. Some of these kids enrolling, like they go to the bowl. I don't know the whole deal with it. You get done to your high school. You don't play in the bowl, but they let them practice. And I think it's a good thing. I don't give NCAA much credit very often, but at least these kids acclimate. Anybody that's there practicing, whatever, it's a good thing. Shavers is going to go to Nebraska probably. EMG 4454. Shavers is committed to Miami, but I don't think they were pursuing him that hard. He didn't have a great senior year from what I heard. And I think he's going to end up in Nebraska. He is visiting the Huskers this weekend. NK, Florida State has to recruit the trenches better, 100%. Land elite talent if you want to commit for or compete for a natty. I couldn't have said it any better myself. One of the things that Florida State has struggled at is getting players to commit early on, later on, whatever, in a couple of different spots. O-line in particular, we know that. And then, again, I want to talk about it here in a minute. Linebacker, and it's going to hurt them. You can win with the portal to a certain degree, but at some point that's going to bite you. Just as a little prelude from the classes of 22 and the class of 23. Take a guess how many linebackers the Noles signed in those 2 combined classes. It's not the number that you would want it to be. So with that being stated, we also have something else to talk about, and that is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is your opportunity for daily fantasy sports. It is the largest platform in North America, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers instead of battling thousands of other players, pros and sharks. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 different players with their stats, and you can hopefully watch the winnings roll in. Here's an example. If you have an NBA player that you follow, Let's go with a certain young man that happens to be the best shooter in the world for the Golden State Warriors, and you think he's going to hit 4 or more shots from deep, and the number is 3, well, then you would pick over. You could also put those together, like with the NFL and the NBA. There's a league just for that. In the Specials League, you can do it. And if you're looking at football in particular, just as something to think about, they have something with injuries. If a guy gets hurt in the first half, you have injury protection, he gets reloaded. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. This is something that I think a lot of people would enjoy if they haven't. It's pretty simple and straightforward. So check out Prize Picks today. All right, let's get back into the questions here. Let's see, where were we here? All right. NK, MJJ, and other linebacker from UGA possible. Marvin Jones Jr. is who you're talking about. I believe he's at FSU this weekend. That's the last I'd heard. If somebody has heard differently, please post it in the chat. I don't know what all Florida State has going on for this weekend. 2 points here to that. I get information, and then sometimes it changes. And B, unlike with recruiting, for instance, I can call a 7-on-7 coach, or like I'm going to text him with one here over the last few hours about kids unrelated to FSU, but I don't have the same access with these portal kids, especially the ones that are like juniors and seniors. They've been away from a lot of their mentors from their high school days long enough. They're not always in contact. It's wild. So what's reported, what happens, not always the same. Irvin Williams, in your opinion, is money worth more to high school kids than development or actually wanting to be at the school, or is it a mixture of both? Money, it depends on the kid. Like to a inner city kid or something, yeah, it's going to mean a lot. But I also know rich kids that still have went after the money, or kids that are from pretty darn good families. So that's really a hard question to answer because it's case by case. There's one kid in particular that I know, he's going to a school because of the NIL package they offered him, and he did not want to go there. He just thought it was too much money to pass up. It's a school that's got a good coach at his position, so that helped. But from what I was told, it was the NIL. So that's a great question, Irvin, but it is a player pretty much making his own decision. It's case by case. So, all right, what we got here? Kool-Aid Maker, a former 5-star coming with MJJ. I'm not sure. Oh, the other linebacker. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I haven't heard much on the linebacker situation. We'll see if somebody knows more about it. I've just seen it in passing. I have not researched that at all. I don't know who's involved, but that'll probably be something I find out more about Saturday and Sunday. Christopher Hay, good night. Is there any way that Division I programs can have scrimmages against smaller schools to help speed up some of their young players before putting in big-time football games? Great job. No. Everything is sanctioned to the letter of the law. You're not going to, I know you're talking about trying to get guys up to speed faster, and I get what you're saying. The answer is no. To my knowledge, you cannot do that. Like basketball, there might be a little different, but the injury thing is part of what they're worried about, is my guess. And looking at it from the NCAA's own perspective, they just want fewer times these guys are running into each other, less chance for them to get sued somewhere on down the line. Daddy Noel, it's weird that we have so much success at defensive end development and struggle at recruiting the position. There's truth in that. I wonder why that is. That's very odd. I don't know why that is, man. But Florida State historically has had DNs, and even here recently, they certainly have too. Grand Champion, just checking. Any word with Cam Ward so far? How's the visit going? I have no idea. Like I was just saying a minute ago, with high school kids, I might know something. I mean, he's from Texas, then he was in the Northwest. I don't know any of his people. I have no idea. If somebody's posted something on one of the other boards, more power to them. I don't trust in these kind of situations. Even if Norvell called me, I'd be a little weary. I literally don't want to hear what Florida State has to say. I want to hear what somebody in that kids camp has to say. Coaches always think they're getting everybody. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. It's nothing against them. It's human nature. But I don't know anybody in Cam's corner. K-Jack the Great. They say he's supposed to be coming on the visit with MJJ. They're talking about the linebacker. If that is the case, I mean, what I'm going to talk about here in just about 5 minutes is going to be a big deal because I'm going to talk about linebackers and, excuse me, Florida State needs. Now, I didn't want to get into the board, like who they're after and all that. Florida State needs at least 2 linebackers from the portal. So that's important. What's happening with Cam Ward? Like I said, all I know is he's on the visit. There's been pictures put out there on social media and stuff. He is on campus. That's all I know. If he's a kid that ends up making a decision sooner than later, it would benefit me, you, everybody in this chat, and quite honestly, all across the world, because then all of these teams, not just Florida State, Miami, the 2 schools that he's visited, because there's still other ones trying to get him to make visits, I guarantee it, could move on with their number 2 guy, number 3, and this would go boom, 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 boom. It'd be like a bunch of dominoes just tilting right over on top of the next one. Cam is probably the top of the board for everybody, just about, until he decides. A lot of teams are going to be kind of iffy. Should we or should we not make a decision on this? That's a great question. Do we wait it out and risk it? Because then the number 2 guy might be gone, the number 3 guy. It's a great question, man. So what's going on with Cam Ward does certainly matter. Grand champion. I remember seeing it at a few of our games. I coached at St. Miami. Oh, okay. There you go. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I've been to Miami Central games. I know Blue real well. I was up at the Ocala game when Armando went bonkers. Obviously, I think it was 6 sacks Armando had in that game. Holy cow, that was ridiculous. Mike Bartz, what's up, Nole fam? Kim, thank you. When should we expect some movement by Florida State to get some portal guys? That's honestly a really good question. I would say sometime in the next 5 to 10 days, you'll see 3 or 4 guys. And it could be more if Cam comes, because I think people would want to play with him. This weekend, you'll get one or two next week. And then by the end of next weekend, you should have, right before Christmas, I think a lot of people would want to have their decision made before they go into Christmas. I think next Thursday and Friday could be, just in general, not Florida State. Florida State should have 3 or 4, I would assume, but there could be some other schools that really need portal help. Like Oklahoma's offensive line's devastated. They're probably desperate. They might get 6 or 7 and take a couple of chances. Depends on the school. But with the Noles, I'm going to guess 3 or 4 in the next week. K-Jack, I know we're up right now and doing good, but I feel like a lot of kids are going to our rivals because of early playing time. There's some truth to that, but Florida State's got a top 10 class by any measurement. At the end of the day, you got to develop who you get. Florida State is developed better than most schools, in particular one in Gainesville. Can anybody argue against that? Being objective, I know there's a bunch of Florida State fans, but Florida State's developing better than most schools. That's why they're winning. So that's something else to put into perspective here. McEwen's, good evening from Colorado. Hello. I'm guessing it is much colder there because I am in Central Florida, and it is definitely not as cold as where you are. I'm curious, do you have any snow? I'm guessing that you are somewhere close to Denver, but if not, in the lower areas, away from the mountains, you may not. So that's part of it. One other thing here. Before I get into, here's one more real quick. What's your general take on the overall strength of the portal this year, and is any position in particular deep? Oh, that's a good question. There's quite a few receivers. I think a few of them are a little underrated. I forget the kid, Jamal something. There's a kid at Wake Forest. Doesn't have huge numbers, but they had terrible quarterback play. He's a senior, going to be a 5th year somewhere. That'd be a good player for somebody. There's a lot of guys like that, though. There's something to be said for grown men's strength at receiver, too, because they got to block part of the screen game, break tackles. He's like a 6'4", 205 kid. I think receiver is going to be one that's pretty common. Quarterback's pretty good, but it's not great. It's a little better than I thought it was going to be because, as usual, a couple of kids got in that I didn't necessarily think would. Even Cam's better than I thought. And I think Will Howard's a little better than I thought. Once I dove in to look at the film, I'm like, hey, these guys can play. But O-line is concerning, being nice. And that's a spot everybody's looking. O-line is concerning. D-tackle is not the deepest. Walter Nolan, by the way, from what I heard, is probably going to end up at Ole Miss. That's kind of scary. Ole Miss is killing it in the portal. That's the best player in the portal, I think, in general. along with Cam Ward. But overall, like the line play, and I think this is common, really good D linemen just leave, go to the NFL, and then O linemen just don't transfer much. Those two spots will generally be the weakest year in, year out. Grand champion. I played at Central, went to FSU with Freeman, my best friend of 26 years, talked to him every day. I talked to Randy Shaman over the week at Odell. My nephew is at Pat. Oh, mom is my sister. Oh, but dang. That is a small world, brother. You got a lot of connections. North Dakota. Oh, wow. North Dakota. It is cold as all get out there. I do not want to be there for Christmas. Yeah, there's snow on the ground from yesterday from Panama City originally. Yeah, I'd imagine the difference between Panama City and anywhere in Colorado is quite stark. I don't know what the deal is with Blunt. As far as what you're asking, Mike, everybody's going to offer kids like that NIL money. He lives right down the road from the University of Miami, like 10 miles. I have no idea what it is. I haven't talked to Armando in quite a while. Mike Hawley, predict number 11 gets 12 sacks in 24. He could. Here's the only question, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier this week. Patrick Payton's a dude. That's who he's talking about. He's saying he's going to get 12 sacks next year. He could. However, if Florida State does not bring in somebody or somebody does not develop or a combination, whatever, on the other side, teams are going to chip him and double him all year. Because he was opposite adverse, they kind of got, one of them couldn't be doubled. Couldn't do it. You don't have enough numbers. So if he's the only guy, he could actually go down in sacks because he's just keyed on. That's why recruiting never ends and it's so important. What about the center that committed to SC? I haven't heard anything. I know his coach real well. I mean, from what I was told when he originally committed, one of the prime reasons that he decided on Southern Cal, not Florida State, the offense, I mean, obviously a certain quarterback there, Caleb, kind of created an aura, but he just liked the offense and everything that SC was doing. And I thought to myself, that may be, but a lot of teams run spread. It just looks different when Caleb Williams back there. I mean, like physically gifted, except for maybe Jaden Daniels. I mean, you could make that argument. Caleb Williams, I still think, is the most talented kid in the country. He's played for a team that had zero defense. Man, they were terrible. It's a crying shame how bad USC's defense got. But they did go out and hire UCLA's defense coordinator, so good for that. I will give them credit. All right. One other thing to discuss before we get into linebackers, and that is prize picks, LinkedIn jobs. When you are hiring for a small business, you want to have as many top-tier candidates as you can possibly interview. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. For instance, we're a week away from National Signing Day. Right after that is Christmas. Anybody that was trying to hire for the holidays, they have screening tools that will help you find candidates for any level of job. Somebody that's part-time, it could be accounting, it could be a big box store, it could be a small warehouse and you just need physical labor. They will have tools to do it. I've used LinkedIn numerous times. I've been on both sides of the ledger with that. It's a great, great resource. So you should check it out. The app is easy to use. It's easy to manipulate and figure out. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right. I'm going to transition right now to the linebacker situation. And I definitely want your questions on this. It's really wild to me that Florida State is in this spot. Because when I was growing up, like, it's ironic. Marvin Jones Jr. is in the portal right now. He's going to visit Florida State. For those of you old enough, and I'm 50, Marvin Jones Jr., when he came out, Dennis Erickson, who was at Miami at the time, said he was the best high school linebacker he ever saw. Goes to Florida State, balls out for 3 years. I think he was the third pick by the Jets. He had a knee injury or else his career would have been a lot better. He still played in the NFL. He was as good as it gets. His kid is on campus as at the end. But, man, Marvin could play. Just wanted to bring that up. But it's just weird because they're losing Tatum Bethune, Kalen DeLoach, your two backers. Teams today are in nickel, so you don't really use three backers that much, but they're also losing Lundy. He's in the portal, in case you didn't know. DJ is one of the more highly skilled guys at making tackles, just being consistent, according to Pro Football Focus. They also lost 2022 recruit Dylan Brown Turner to the portal. Omar Graham, who's a 2022 kid, playing linebacker, pretty good player. He's going to get a lot of chances, I think, this next spring. That's the name we're going to be talking about. Blake Nicholson and DeMarco Ward. Those are a couple kids that were in this last class. They're freshmen. They're going to get a chance, but there's not a lot else. I mean, there's a few other kids, but that's just a little bit that I scouted through, went through the roster, and like, okay, who's transferred, who hasn't? Let's dig into this, because Bethune and Deloach played 90% of the reps, it seems like, in the big games. And they should. They were good. But Florida State's pretty void. And I'm not thinking they thought Deloach and Bethune were going to leave and they were going to lose Lundy. Just my guess. But losing all three is a big blow. And before we start digging into all the Georgia stuff and all that right after Christmas, these are the kind of things I want to talk about. Big box for your program. When you lose that many kids at one spot, it takes away from other players because teams can attack it when you're inexperienced, etc. In the middle of the field in particular. It's hard to lose inside linebackers, both. And then a key linebacker that's a backup. Norvell and his staff have it pretty rough to go against those guys. That's not easy, bro. That's not easy at all. Here's the other part. And you can do whatever you want with this. But this is just my opinion. If you're going to bring two in this year and you need at least two, you might need to bring one more in. And I'll get to the two guys in a second in this class as a linebacker. The two they have right now, I love. Jaden Parrish and Tamir Hickman Collins. Parrish is one of my favorite players in this class. He's from Atlantic High School in South Florida. He can ball. He's not a bad player in any way, shape, or form. That kind of kid's going to help you. You need at least two transfers, though. I want to put this in so anybody can ask questions or whatever in the chat. I'm going to dive back in here. But Florida State at linebacker has a long way to go. This is not easy. Let's see, where are we at here? Let's see what we got. If we can develop Blake and Cryer, but do we need both depths? I agree. Yeah, man, like linebacker takes a lot of hits. I know a guy that played for the Cowboys, was a linebacker. Even in college, he was having shoulder pain and stuff. It's not a normal thing to bang your shoulder over and over and over again. It's just not. You always got to have depth everywhere, but that's a spot that takes on more attrition too. Kool-Aid maker. Either a kid doesn't believe in the message of Mike's program and development, or the kid can't get paid. But something needs to change in recruiting the elite trench players from high school. There's some truth to that. They're trying to get the kid from North Carolina, White. They're trying to get some other guys, but they haven't hit as much as they used to on D-line recruiting. Kool-Aid maker's not wrong. Just getting one more kid a year, D-tackle or D-end, completely changes your program. Because if you do that 4 consecutive years, only one of them pans out. Like, doesn't have to be Jared first, but if one of them's an upper echelon player that goes in 3rd, 4th round, that's a dude. That's the difference between beating somebody like Miami or Florida and not. It matters. You are 100% correct. Marvin Jones was a beast. Yeah, Brooks, Davis, Boulware, Poley. FSU had some mean backer, 100%. Those edge guys, Renard Wilson, remember him? He played with Boulware. I mean, good Lord. That's as good a 1-2 punch on both edges as you'll ever see in college football. Angelo Smith, I was hearing that a linebacker from Georgia was coming to visit with MJ. That's what some other people said, Angelo. I have not checked that much on it today. I've been doing some more other statistical research and all that with the linebacker stuff. But yeah, it's not surprising. I think we're at a point where we can safely say they need the help at linebacker. If somebody wants to pull it up and put it in the chat who that kid is, that's great. I forget his name, but he's a big-time backer. One of my buddies had sent me a message about him about 24 hours ago. Omar. Yeah, Omar's a good player too. Irvin, at any point when you can get an extra linebacker that got a little experience, that's why I said on my list, I've got 2 that they need in the portal, but anybody you can bring back to that can play. Yeah. Kirk Carruthers. Yeah, he was a hell of a linebacker. Played in the NFL for quite a while. Florida State is among the best programs since Bowden was there at all the spots, really. But linebacker, pretty high on the board. So I don't know. I don't know what to say there. Yeah. Thumbs up to Irvin. Yeah, look, experience a linebacker, man. Middle of the field, directing the defense. If you don't have it there, that's for every guy that's like an elite player that played at Florida State or Florida Miami, one of these guys who played as a freshman somewhere, that 5-star, those guys are even rare at the rarest situations, even at the big three. And all of them have had great linebackers. They're usually still sophomores at the earliest. Florida State needs 2 guys from the portal, man. They need 2. Question for everybody in the chat. Obviously, linebacker is a concern of mine, and it's my number one concern as a position group. Quarterback's different because it's a one-person deal. What position are you most concerned about beyond linebacker? I'm a little torn on it. I'm concerned. Daughtry's in the portal. Matter of fact, I got some of the guys that are in the portal here. I wrote it down today. AJ Duffy, Rodney Hill, CJ Campbell, Malcolm Ray, the D lineman, Quason Sapp, and Daughtry Richardson, both O linemen. That's not good. And linebacker DJ Lundy. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but again, that's Duffy at quarterback, Hill and Campbell at running back, Ray at D line, Sapp and Richardson O line. They were underclassmen. Lundy at linebacker. O-line is probably my next pick because I just think it needs to get better in general, but I'm curious. D tackle and receiver. I think receiver has some talent. One of the guys can step up. I don't think they have as much need numbers-wise. They need a guy. They need somebody to step up, and it could be Hakeem. His freshman to sophomore year should be a pretty big jump, and they have some other guys, too, that are pretty good. K-Jack says D tackle and receiver, though. Angelo, left tackle and center. Not going to argue. Like when Mo's not in the lineup at center, it's not the same. I'm not picking on anybody else, but Mo is a darn good center and left tackle. Speaks for itself. Wide receiver and O-line for Daddy Noel. And a veteran receiver. Yeah, like even if it's a guy, like I mentioned, Jamal something, I can't remember his name. The kid was at Wake Forest. I looked him up. He's like 6'4", 205. He's more of a possession guy, and that's cool. But if you get that guy, you put him around guys like Ja'Kai Douglas, etc. He's good in the run game. He's 205, and he's 22 years old. He's going to be a little better blocker. He's caught a bunch of balls, caught around 100 balls. And he's also going to be a boundary receiver that teams have to respect. That helps all your other skill guys. So Angelo is 100% correct. I think that's a really important thing. William McMillan. I'll be so glad where we start picking up portal players. Getting worried. It's a little early. Here's the thing. It doesn't end until the 2nd of January. Mr. McMillan, it is still early. K-Jack, the kid Amaree Williams just hit the portal from USC. What do you mean, hit the portal? He's going to the NFL. He'd be the first pick in the draft. There's no way he's going to the portal. Oh, Mario, wait a minute. This is an interesting one. That's the wide receiver that's from Plant City, Florida. My apologies, not Caleb. Mario, well, he would be a tremendous pickup. He is electric. He's a kid everybody knew, freshman on at Plant City High, etc. He's a dude. That's one to monitor. Circle that one on your board. Irvin Williams, I'm hoping Julian and Estes become starters on the O-line. You know what? Spring ball will take care of that. O-line is a developmental spot, but you have to, as they say, over-recruit. What happens. If somebody leaves, somebody leaves. That's the era we're in. I'm not disagreeing with Irvin on that, but it's something that you got to look at. Mr. McMillan, we need Mario bad. Yeah, he can, dude, I'm telling you, he's not the biggest dude. He's 5'10"-ish, but he is a human joystick. Nothing wrong with that. So, I can't really think of, O-line is just stuck in my head. And I know they need D-line, but they're going to be okay there with the way they're recruiting. Maybe they get the kid from North Carolina, add another little bulk, get one portal guy. I'm worried about O-line. And of course, again, my number one spot is linebacker. Rod Stoudemire says O-line D tackle. I don't have a problem with that. Big body guy. Size matters. McMillan. Hit the line button, people. Yeah, I get it. Offensive and defensive line is always going to be thin. I mentioned that earlier in the show. There's no reason to believe that's not going to be the case. There's just not. Florida State, like anybody else, is going to have a hard time getting everybody they want out of the portal at positions of need. But when you miss in the trenches, it's just harder. It just is. Then you have to worry about your guys getting knocked. Like your quarterback takes more shots. You have more negative plays. O-line in particular takes longer to gel. Excuse me. Got to have them, man. If you can get a good O-lineman with start of the year, even if he started at Princeton and he's 6'6", 300 pounds, you have to consider it. Mr. Kool-Aid Maker. Dumas Johnson, I believe, is the Georgia linebacker that is coming with MJJ. If I remember right, he's a kid that's from the area too, and he was a thumper. He was extremely highly recruited. So if he's on campus, good for Florida State. Mr. McMillan, great show. Thanks for all the info. My pleasure. I'm going to probably do one more show this weekend. Lord only knows what'll break. I'm going to kind of wait on breaking news. My luck, I'll be out at the grocery store or something when something happens. But we're close to signing day. It is what it is. I do enjoy doing these kind of shows, so I'm going to break them up. If anybody has any ideas on things they want to hear about between now and, say, a week or so from now, right before Christmas, let me know. Put it in the chat, whatever. I'll be more than happy to take a look at it and at least address it during one of these live shows. Do you think Amaree Williams commits soon, and how does he stack up versus Blunt and McCray? Okay, well, that's a good question. If he's visiting this weekend and it's his only visit, unless he's going to take visits in January, and I don't know, I would assume that he's going to go to Florida State. If he signed it next week, he's going to Florida State. As far as how Blunt is a different kind of player. Blunt is incredibly strong for his, he's 25 pounds to 30 pounds heavier. He's really strong. Similar kind of athlete, maybe not straight line and open field speed, but he's a lineman, so it doesn't matter. I think Blunt has incredible upside. I just don't know exactly how he's going to end up. Is he going to be a 3-tech, 5-tech combination? I don't know. That'll take care of itself. As far as McCray, he's just starting to play D-line. This was the first year, it's so bizarre, that LJ McCray plays at Mainland, ended up playing D-line. He's committed to Florida. There's a lot of talk about Florida State and Auburn. I don't know where he's going. Again, like with other guys, just full disclosure, LJ McCray, I've heard he's definitely staying in Florida. Then I was told today by somebody else, Auburn thinks they got him. And then he was just at Florida State as well. I have no idea where he's going. But he's 275, and he's just learning the spot. And he was actually playing outside linebacker at about 275 this year. He's listed like 250 or whatever. He had to have been bigger than that. I'm just using that weight. He did not tell me that, but he is a big dude. What do we got here? All right. DA, not DA2. DA1, not DA2. Look, what's up with the Georgia lawmaker? I'm not sure what's going on with that. There's another pending case because the NCAA is getting sued all over the place. And court rulings like the one in West Virginia, in case anybody didn't see it, is an important one to bring up. Somebody said if you transfer a second time per the federal government, you are now allowed to do so without sitting out. The NCAA is trying to fire back at them, and that is going to be ugly. 6 teams. I'm not sure what you mean, brother. Oh, college football play. That's interesting. I don't know, man. I haven't seen anything on that. I'll have to read up on it after this. If there's another college football playoff deal, Lord only knows what's going on there. I haven't the slightest. I hadn't. That's the first I've heard of it. Maybe I've been buried so much in the stats and like really specific stuff today. It might have went right past me on the timeline. While I'm thinking of it, there's probably a lot of things right now because everybody's trying to get stuff in right before the end of the year. The Georgia attorney that's trying to get the FSU Georgia game, the CFP. Look, they can call it what they want. But for those that don't know, the CFP title game, they are not a part of the NCAA. That is not the NCAA championship. That is their own deal. They can call it what they want. I mean, if Florida State, Georgia want to do it, they can absolutely do it. Brendan with 0 seems like there's a better plan B options as far as quarterback goes. There are some pretty good backup quarterback options, and like I don't know if DJ Uyunglele is going to end up at Florida State if they don't get Cam Ward or somebody else. But I trust Norvell with quarterback situation, and he's got a good staff around him. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. Georgia has a guy wanting the Florida State Georgia game to be added to the. Well, there are a bunch of people. Because I don't doubt that, but look, they're not going to. If you're talking about the actual playoff game in terms of this group being forced to, it's not going to happen. They wouldn't legally, you know how things crawl anyway. But it's interesting that they're trying, and they could make this. They can, like, whoever wins could say, "I'm the national champion." What's stopping them? Any quarterback interest from the guy from the Longhorns? To my knowledge, he's going to have a billion phone calls. But you know what? The backup quarterback that was at Texas, he got him through some games when Quinn Ewers was out. Malik Murphy's his name. I don't know what teams have been interested in. Is it Ohio State? You would assume both LA schools would be involved with Malik. He's from the greater Los Angeles area, but I don't know. Like I said early on in this chat, with a high school kid, sometimes I can call a 7-on-7 guy, whatever, and find out. I don't have LA connections, West Coast connections for one, and he's been at Texas for a couple of years. I don't know. I think he could do pretty well, but he can move, but he's not Jordan Travis mobile. We got 14 days to see. That is true. Could Amaee develop into a backer? He's 215, so it's possible, and he's 6'4", and he can bend and run and change direction. Amaee could play about anything. Mr. Kool-Aid Maker, he is a phenomenal athlete. Not a good one, a phenomenal one. In Norvell, we trust. Go Noles, eat more gator. That's a great post. Post of the day, Mr. Jeff Burrows. Yeah, I don't, going back to this for a second, figuring out what a position a player is going to be long-term can sometimes be hard, but that's a good thing because that means the young man in question, or more than one in some cases, are just that talented. What position do you need for that year? There are a lot of guys that have Hall of Fame next to their name in Canton, Ohio, that at one point in time were a running back or a quarterback or whatever it was. And then they ended up, once they got to the college level, by their sophomore, junior year, they figured it out. This is my spot. And they go to the NFL. And of course, in the NFL, you're pretty much going to play one for the most part. Now, this modern era, there's a little more guys moving around because it's the spread era. But traditionally, you're a middle linebacker, you're tight end, you're tight end. I think Amaee will figure it out no matter where he goes. But you can't take it away at 215 that he couldn't play linebacker. I'm telling you, he can bend and he can change direction. I've seen it in my own two eyes at a track practice and his football practice that day. He is a very talented athlete. Let's see. K-Jack. Jaron Jones declared for the draft, but they say he's playing the bowl game. Good news. Shout out to the guys who graduated today. On both accounts. Jaron Jones declaring for the draft. That's why I always say I'm going to wait till all the kids have declared. I think it's around the 15th when the NFL draft date is. K-Jack, you are correct. Also, congrats to everyone that got their FSU degree today. Let's see. You think FSU starters play in the bowl game? I think they have a little more incentive than most of the other bowl games, but a lot of guys are just worried about getting hurt, man. I remember, forget what year it was, Jake Butt, 19, something like that. The tight end for Michigan was going to go pretty out. He got hurt. His career was really short after that. I think that has a lot of guys scared. Angelo Smith, does Florida State have any interest in any running backs from the portal? I would imagine they do. Even if it's a specialist, like a bigger back or something, I just don't know which ones. I would consider taking, like I said this yesterday, a running back, at least one receiver, and even if it's a backup, a quarterback every year, possibly a tight end, because experience, cohesion, understanding how system works on offense is a little different than defense. I would look at that. That's just my opinion. Kool-Aid Maker. Charlie Ward was a punter. Yeah. Charlie Ward could have done about anything. Could have been a slot, and he'd have been a hell of a free safety. Bowden and those guys thought he was going to be a DB at one point. Charlie thought otherwise. Way, way past otherwise. Facts. Thank you, Angela. I think that back to Angela's point from a second ago, if you get, let's say, if you go into a season with 4 running backs, it's not enough. One guy's nicked, one guy at the college level is still learning, one guy is probably more of a specialist, and then you got a starter. It's kind of how it works, usually. Florida State was a little more blessed this year. They had a really good group. They were deep as hell. But that's the exception, not the rule. Like Kazai and CJ are down at the bottom of the depth chart. They would start or play a lot at other schools. CJ goes to portal. Kazai is going to get his chance this coming year. Obviously, they had Rodney. They had Lawrence DeFeely. And they had Trey Benson. That is depth. You're not going to have that every year. So if you can get a portal guy, even if it's somebody's going to run for 200 yards, but they can come in and be a good practice player, be a good kid, pass block a little bit, you take that kid. Kool-Aid Maker. Jamon Dumas is showing on the Georgia website. 7:30 entered the portal. Very interesting. Florida State, best team in college. Angelo, right tackle is as neat as well, I think. Byers is a guard, not a tackle. Probably so. Finding tackles, man, is hard. Real hard. And to be honest with you, it just is what it is. So, who would you key on as far as transfer edge rushers? Any names you like? Well, obviously, Marvin Jones Jr. Oben committed to Notre Dame. I haven't researched much besides quarterback because it takes so much of my time. Trying to think off the top of my head who it was. There was another kid, the Joey Slackman kid, I know was a tackle that a bunch of people were interested in. He was at Penn, but I can't remember too many good like DNs. Like, again, they either turn pro or they stick. They don't have much reason to transfer unless it's a grad kid. Jafari Harvey, somebody is kind of interesting. He was at Miami. He's from Vero Beach. I'm sure he'll get an offer from several schools in the South. He's got another year, and that's a big body. But off the top of my head, there aren't a ton of guys I'd be interested in, and I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Cody Gibson, which linebackers and corners will FSU go after? Georgia has a ton in the portal. Yeah, I got to research it. I have not got into that part yet because I've been messing so much with signing day. After signing day, I'll know more of this. I just don't have enough time to get to all of it yet. I wish I did, but that's a really hard thing to get to. Irvin, as long as Florida State wins 10, as the Florida, we don't care who we get. 10 or more is a pretty good barometer. NK, man, I wanted Oben. There's a guy at Pitt, can't remember his name. Here's the interesting, the kid at Pitt, he's a year older. Okunlola, who you're talking about, his brother is at Miami. But I think the kid at Pitt has visited FSU, or he's going to, but I know the Noles are involved. Let's see. FSU has 2 3-star linebackers. Let me talk about those kids for a second again. Jaden Parrish is better than a 3-star. I don't give a crap who ranks him. I saw him be a dominant player in the spring at the Jamboree at Palm Beach Gardens. He's a dude. He is a dude. The other kid, Tamir Hickman Collins, plays like Indian Land, South Carolina. It's like Podunkville. That is a Mike Norvell special. He grades the kid individually. He does not care what other people think, and that's the end of the discussion. Then I turned on the tape too. He can run, he can hit, solid frame. He has a chance to be a really good linebacker, but he plays in the middle of nowhere. It's not the same. When I go watch Chaminade, Madonna, St. Thomas Aquinas, IMG, whatever, there's a reason. I'm going to see multiple kids. If I go see that kid, it's one guy. So they don't get scouted as much. They both play running back. Interesting. Michael Washington, what's up? Do you believe Auburn's flips KJ? Quite possibly, but I've heard literally he's going to go Florida State. I've heard he's definitely not going to in the last 24 hours. I've given up. People I trust too. Angelo, FSU will show the nation why we're the real DBU next season. We are loaded. I think Florida State's DB unit, I know I've talked a lot about this on the show. Kids like Conrad Hussey and what coming up. You've got plenty of guys like that, freshmen and sophomores. Obviously, it helps to have the experience they did this year, and they're losing Fintrell, etc. But they got some dudes coming up, and this freshman class is going to be loaded. Wait a minute, did I hit that? Let's see. Yeah. All right. Kool-Aid Maker. Why are tackles not entering at the rate of the other positions? Are they paid better from the jump? It's more mentality. Offensive linemen, as a general rule, commit to something and stick with it. It's just a mentality. It has nothing to do with the portal. It has nothing to do with NIL. They pick a school. They go to the school. They develop. They leave that school. That's it. If you don't get high school offensive linemen, you're in trouble. Go get 3-star dogs. Nothing wrong with that, man. The 1, not the 2. You know what, man? Look, if you evaluate the kids and you like them, you got to live with it. But, I mean, I like both those kids. Hickman's really good. And to be honest with you, I think Parrish, one of the better linebackers in Florida, if it's not the best. First had 0 stars, so let's let that sink in. That's true, Zambito. That is true. DBU is back. It's incredible how many guys Florida State used to produce at DB. Angela, 100%. Look, whether they get Bolden or not, even if they didn't, look at the class, it's pretty good. Charles Lester, etc. I mean, they got some guys. I'm not worried about Florida State at DB. Give me some linebackers. Let's figure out what's going on at a few other spots. Maybe a running back. Definitely a receiver. O-line is at least 2. I think at least 2 linebackers. They'll be okay. How do I feel about Rodemaker? Not very good. I don't think he's that great. I don't think you're going to win 10 games with him. It's just my opinion. Angelo, how real, is the information on KJ Bolden's teammate, that linebacker that was supposed to reclassify to the 24 class? I don't know which kid you're talking about because he plays at Buford and they got a ton of kids. I'm not sure which one you're referring to. I'd have to look up to Buford. Buford's got like half dozen Power 5 kids almost every year. Oh, I know you're talking about. He's got the Perot or whatever. I think he's going to go to Auburn. He's a hell of a player. I'd take that kid in a heartbeat. He's really freaking good. He plays some running back for Buford, etc. Perlotti, something like that. Really nice kid too. But boy, he's a thumper. Christopher Bennett, besides Hussey and Thomas Boundary walking their starting positions in the secondary, who do you have at the other corner and Buck? I mean, I don't think there is any one spot that I would pick definitively, although Thomas, I think, is the most likely. Can't teach 6'2" corners. Hussey has a great chance. He might be your nickel. There's all kinds of ways you can do it. But I just think Florida State has enough guys that it'll work itself out. And from a depth perspective, you look at a depth chart, Johnny is here, Timmy's here, etc. They have guys that can play multiple spots. So the depth chart is not exactly accurate. And that's a good thing because Florida State has versatility. And amen to that. May need to bring in another elite recruiter on staff, D-line and linebacker positions. Look, recruiting against coaching development, you need both. But Florida State needs to recruit better in the trenches in general, just numbers-wise. And linebacker has been weird. Again, they only got 4 kids from the 22 and 23 classes at linebacker, and one of them's transferred. That's not enough. Jeff Burrows, coach knows what type of players he can develop. Stars who care. A dog is a dog. Well, there's some truth in that. If it's a small town kid like the Hickman, I mean, Hickman Collins plays in the middle of nowhere. He's lucky Florida State offered him, to be honest. And he didn't end up at a Division II school or FCS because there could have been a lot of schools passed on him. And he's really good. Small school kids, it's not the same deal. They're just not going to get as many eyeballs. Just the way it is. All right. He's the real deal. Angel, yeah. Player like his game, I wish we had a chance with him. He was on record saying he'd go wherever KJ goes. Yeah, him and KJ are buddies. They are definitely buddies. Kool-Aid Maker. I'm having a hard time with the recruiting of the elite D-line players. Higgins has been and is an elite developer at the position. Why can't he close on these guys? We have historically been elite. I don't know. To be honest with Higgins, maybe it's just because he's gotten older and kids don't relate to him as well. I couldn't tell you. EMG 4454, DN from Georgia Tech. He came on campus last weekend. He said he wanted development to get to the league. Any info on him? I just know he visited. That's about it. Like, unlike the recruits, like, I don't know these kids in that regard. A lot of these under the radar kids that kind of come up through the ranks, like Georgia Tech wasn't taking 4 and 5 star guys. I have no idea. When he announces something about his commitment date or whatever, you'll know just as much as me. Portal thing is not my deal to this point because I haven't figured out how to get a hold of the kids like some of these other guys. K-Jack, he committed to South Carolina. Are we talking about Prelati? Who are we talking about? Jeff Burrows. This show's so cool. Thanks, bro. No problem. How are you doing? Recruiting rundowns, portal rundowns. It's easier to do it this way than me just talking on a show. It's just easier. So that's why I did it. And I'll probably do a lot of these moving forward too. So if you're going to the channel in general, and thanks to all the everydayers that make this a great show, check when you go to YouTube, the page, hit live. You'll see other shows that you missed. You can do it that way. And I break them up into segments and put them on the main page as well. But if you just click on the live thing, you can watch the whole thing and go through it as you see fit as well. Let's see. K-Jack. Kennard. Committed to South Carolina. Somebody help me here. What is the appeal of South Carolina? Now, I get their fans are crazy. They're brilliant about finding a way to support a team that stinks. Why do people want to go to South Carolina? Honestly, they're terrible. What is it? K-Jack, thumbs up. Last year, it seemed like more players fit Florida State rather than this year. Am I off on this? Whew. If you mean you're talking about fit from the portal, Mr. Kool-Aid Maker, you're talking about something else. EMG 4454 is answering my question on South Carolina. He's got 3 money signs up for those of you listening to this podcast later on. Part of it is true because South Carolina's recruiting just isn't good enough. That's about the only way they're going to get there, I guess. Jeffrey Bell, thoughts on the kid that committed from Vero Beach? He's a 26 kid athlete. I've only briefly seen him. If it's the kid I'm thinking of, you talking about the receiver? If that's the kid you're talking about? Portal. Like portal thing, it's just random. You don't know who's going to go in and how they're going to fit your institution. From talking to college coaches, high school coaches, 7-on-7 guys, trainers, man, that is random as all get out. They still pick, what's on the logo on the hat, less than the person that's wearing it. The logo on the shirt, it's more about the person that's wearing it. But some kids just don't fit Florida State. They want a big city environment. They want USC or Miami or Texas in a bigger city. But then there's also the way you're going to look at it, like, development and stuff. If you're going to take a kid for a year, even if we're not the best fit for you socially, if you're good here for a year, you can go to the NFL. That's something else you can sell. Ricky Knighton. Jeff Burrows asked about. Who is Ricky Knighton? Ricky Knight, you mean? The kid from Palm Beach? He's a 24 DB. Have we started recruiting 26? Yeah, oh, hell yeah, they have. They've offered kids. I think they've offered a kid in 27, if I'm not incorrect there. Ramil Hayes asked that question. Yeah, Florida State's recruiting 25, which is juniors, 26, which would be sophomores, 27 are freshmen. There are even some kids below that they're at least looking at. Michael Washington, South Carolina developed players for the transfer portal, a free agent market. Post of the evening, Mr. Michael Washington. Yeah, South Carolina's just not that good, man. It's a tough job, and I think Beamer's done a pretty good job there, but even with a pretty good portal quarterback, their O-line stunk so much this year, and they lost their running back to USC. Yeah, that's it. They're not that good. I'm going to go for a couple more minutes. Anybody else has any questions, fire away, but I'm pretty much where I need to be. And I want everybody to look at this as an opportunity to, shall we say, call it an evening. But if you have any questions or anything you want to think about in terms of answering the bell for what I should talk about over the next week or so, besides obviously National Signing Day, Fire away. Mike just isn't pulling the trigger as fast. He is worried about the locker room or becoming a portal team only in the eyes of recruits. Maybe. It's possible, Kool-Aid Maker, because you got to be careful about pissing guys off that are here. There's a fine line now that you're winning. Yeah, there's truth in that. K-Jack, we got to tighten up the D-line. Miami just got the C.J. Clark from NC State veteran. Blunt might stay. I mean, Miami's loading up on D-line, but so are a lot of other schools. I mean, Ole Miss is too, etc. It's pretty interesting. How sweet is the Gators schedule? Oof. Florida State next year's got a tough schedule and all that, but Florida's nuts. I don't know what they were thinking. Ramil Hayes, remember this name. Caden Hall, class of 26, wide receiver out of Milton, Florida. They always have somebody up there in the Panama City to Pensacola area that's a really good athlete. Apparently, Caden Hall is that guy, and that right there is all the way out in Pensacola. Irvin, I'm from Fort Pierce. The kid I'm concerned with from Vero is All Day Dre. I might have seen him. Is he at Vero Beach High School? KJ Bolden at bull practice, someone asked him to line up next to D Hill. He said Hill hasn't lost the rep yet, and he added that he'll see me next year, though. Okay. Caroline Roan. This is Christopher Lee Miller, my top 5 running backs at Florida State. Amaee, Sammy Smith, Dex Carter, Work Done, Dalvin Cook. Florida State's running back list is pretty dope. Those are some good players. I really liked Sammy Smith a lot. He was a big back that could play downhill. I don't think the Dolphins did a good job of keeping him in line and getting everything right because Marino never won a Super Bowl. That's kind of sad. I think we're going to wrap it up at this point. Kind of looking at the barometer of what's going on. There's a lot of things happening. I could have a show tomorrow. I may not, but I do know one thing for sure. There's news happening constantly. If something happens, it's probably portal related, but who knows? Oh, let's see. You think Marvin Jr. is a lock to Florida State? I have no idea. If he's in the portal, it's an option. That's all I can tell you, Chris. That is all I can tell you. All right, everybody. I am going to call it an evening. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. I'll be back again pretty soon. Hopefully tomorrow, maybe there'll be some portal news, but we'll see. I'm definitely going to have a show. If I don't have one on Saturday, I'll have one Sunday. Everybody, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe. Make sure that you find out what it is you want to talk about on the next show. You know, we'll be happy to do that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Mr. Kool-Aid. And quite honestly, this is a lot of fun. So I might be doing a lot of live shows moving forward. Gotta find a way to make this really consistent. But right now, I'm really loving it. So let's go. One more question here. Great show. Thanks a lot, Chris Ben. Hey, man, I appreciate you coming in. So with that, once again, everybody, I appreciate y'all. Have a safe night. Talk to you soon.